Thank you so much, Guy, for joining us today at HiCounselor. We really appreciate your time. Can you please give a brief introduction of yourself, what your expertise is?
Absolutely. So first of all, I'm super excited to be here and talking to you and the HiCounselor. I think that, in terms of me, I'm currently working at Mobile Cause. It's a fast growing startup, actually recognized by Deloitte as one of the 1,000 in the top 1,000 fastest growing companies in North America. As a startup, I lead all product and UX functions in the company. Prior to that, I worked at DTS as a product manager as well, and I worked at PlayStation Network, where I started my career as a product manager. Prior to that, I got my MBA at Kellogg Northwestern University School of Management, and I have an undergrad at electrical engineering, where I worked as an engineer.
Awesome. Cool. So as you have a great background in product management, would you like to share more insights about what actually product management is?
It's a seemingly innocent question, but it's a it's a big question, and there's a lot of discussions around that in the blogosphere and out there. And what is really product management? What is the role of that? So I'll answer that in three different ways, if that's okay. I'll start with analogy. I found that analogies are helping the most to kind of quickly explain something. Then I'll go into the formal definition, or more formal definition, and then I'll just give my kind of viewpoint on top of that, right? Mm-hmm. So there's multiple analogies in the marketplace today talking about what is product management. Is it a coach? Is it a CEO? Is it the intrapreneur, an entrepreneur, an internal innovator? There's a lot of different ways of slicing and looking at product management. What resonated the most with me is the analogy of a quarterback, right? And I think there's a lot of good parallels. The first one that I really want to emphasize that people have to realize is that, like the quarterback, we don't decide who's the team and who's playing on the field at any given time, right? We're given a team. We're saying, this is your company. Those are the designers. That's the engineering team. Now go and win, right? So we have no formal authority. And a survey I saw recently talks about even up to 67% of all product managers, others, don't have any direct reports. They don't have any formal authority. They don't have P&L responsibilities. So we work really without formal authority. And it's really important to understand that. And I want to highlight that in other aspects of this conversation as well. But if you think about a quarterback, right? So it doesn't determine the players. It doesn't determine the playing field. The other part that's really important, and it's a good analogy, is, product management is part of the team. It's not this distinct portion that sits somewhere else, right? It's on the field with the team, taking the blows, sweating, bleeding with them to get things done to win, right? And a product manager needs to have that mindset when he goes and working with those. It doesn't just write specs and put them out there, and is not engaging heavily with this team and the product team, what I call, or a pod, right? Which is if you think about the core, it's product, design, and engineering, right? You're with them, you're part of them. You celebrate the wins with them, and if there's losses and something doesn't work well, you don't point fingers, right? You're with them together. The other part of it that, like a quarterback, a product manager calls the strategy and game plan, right? This is what we call the product strategy, the roadmap, which features we want to build, right? And then their prioritization. Same thing with a quarterback. And I think very similarly, a quarterback always adapts to the playing field, to the team, against him, the conditions of the field, and so on, right? Product managers are the same with the market, regulations, competitors. You're always adapting. And I think the last part of that is also, in that analogy, is the fact that I see product management as a leader in the team, and we'll talk about more of that. I have some more thoughts on that one, but I think that part of the role of product manager is also to be a motivator for the core team that builds the product, right? It's bringing feedback from the customers, what's going well, and if we're down, we're like, what do we need to do to win? And if you're halftime and you're 5 points below, you come to your team and you say to them, hey guys, we need to rally, we need to win, this is how we're going to do it, and go out and win together, right? So I think that analogy really explains a lot for me and resonates really well with me about the role of product management in the context of building products and software products. Now, the formal aspect, right? And I brought a quote here that I want to quote it. There's a lot of different definitions, by the way, and a lot of formal definitions, but that one I felt is the best, also resonated the most with me. So this is by Don Benedetti. He's a 30-year-old veteran in the community of product management. Go look him up. So he says the role of product management is to deliver measurable business results through product solutions that meet both the market needs and company goals, right? And so there's a lot in that sentence, in that definition. And I want to kind of just address quickly some of those things there. First of all, deliver, right? Compared to other roles, business analyst, data scientist, and others that you might think, product management is about bringing something, taking a concept and bringing it into market, into the hands of a customer, someone that will derive value and will be willing to pay for it. We're not just thinkers. We're not just visionaries, right? Or we have a very specific role, and we're measured first and foremost on things we deliver to market. So that one I wanted to really highlight. The second thing is about business results. A lot of people think like, I just build a feature. It's so cool. Let's build cool things, right? Of course, there's this element, but product manager is not doing his job well, I would argue, if he is not thinking about how what he's delivering to the market will help the business win, either impacting market share, profitability, increasing revenues, or any other business metric that the business cares about for that period of time. And the other part is market needs and company goals, right? Product manager has to align what he's doing with what the market needs, what the customer's pain points are, and what he's trying to solve, and not build things that might be valuable but not to his target market. And it has to align with what the company vision is, the company mission statement, what it tries to deliver, and just make sure that those are aligned, right? So there's a lot in that definition, and I think it touches about all the aspects that product management is doing. Now, and I know it's kind of long-winded answer, but the last part of that, sorry, I would say, there's a saying, I'm just going to sidetrack a bit. There's a saying that says, always be yourself unless you can be Batman, then always be Batman. And why am I saying that? Because if you guys have seen The Dark Knight, the movie, there's a scene at the end of the movie where Batman is going on the run, and he says to the police commissioner, right? He says to him, I'll be anything Gotham needs me to be. And I think there's a lot to it, to product management as well. And I would say that product management, outside of the formal role and definitions, you're also a cohesive part of the team. And because we're about delivery, you got to help the team in whatever it needs to take to get things out the way you need it to get out, right? So if you need to get your hands dirty, if you need to help with writing some, document, whatever it might be at that point of time, you need to run a survey, talk to a customer. That's what you need to be able to do and understand that you need to do in order to help your team win and help the product win in the marketplace. So that's kind of my view on the role of product management.
Awesome. I would say that was a very detailed and a very thorough answer of it. And thanks for sharing that great analogy from Dark Knight. Really helpful. Okay, awesome. So what I understood as a product management, that it also includes a part of kind of project management as well. And a lot of students or job as they confuse between product management and project management. So what would you say? Would project management be a subset of product management, or is it just a part of whole process?
I think the role of project management is a well-defined role, and there is room for that in many organizations, right? However, when you think about the role of product management and we're talking about delivery, in order to be able to deliver and execute well, you have to have some project management skills. You have to say and work with your team, obviously, right? But you have to be able to say, this is what we're going to do, and this is roughly the time when we're going to do it, and those are the steps you're going to take in order to get there. That's project management, right? You don't you don't probably do analysis of resourcing, because that's where engineering team comes into place. They need to, the engineering manager and the engineering team should say who the resources are, who would work on what, in order to scope the effort and give an estimated timeline. But it's up to you to make sure, because you need to communicate not only internally to other stakeholders, marketing, customer support, sales, and other functions within the company when things are coming out, so they can all align their efforts for launch. But it's also about making the announcements to the market when those things will come, in order to remain competitive and communicate to the market those are the things you're going to do, right? So it's not a subset. I want to be clear. It's not a subset of product management, but you have to have project management skills in order to be able to deliver and execute well with your team.
Perfect. Makes sense. So what are the major challenges that you have faced as a product manager? If I say, like, can you list down like some 2 or 3 really major challenges? I'm sure there may be more than 3, but if you can like list down some really important ones.
Absolutely. I think, when I'm thinking about the challenges, there's always multiple challenges you tackle at any given time. But the 3 biggest challenges for product management in the world today, I would say, in the role in different companies, would be creating alignment between various functions about the roadmap, the strategy, and why you're doing what you're doing. I would say focus and keeping focus both of the organization about the value proposition, about driving the roadmap and the features, because you'll always have people coming in at any given time with multitude of ideas, which some of them might be really great. I'm not discounting at all. It's not about that, but it might take you on a sidetrack from your goal and where you need to get, and it also makes things harder to execute if there isn't focus about what you're doing. And the third one I would say for product management is, how do you say no to things? How do you say no to people that come up with different ideas? How do you push back on executives? They want to change things. Sometimes sales will come in. I have to have this feature to close this deal, even though that feature is not on the roadmap. It's not aligned with what the product is trying to do, right? But they say I have to have that so I can close the deal, right? So, and how do you push back? I think those are the 3 biggest challenges that you have to learn to deal with as a product manager.
Perfect. Yeah, I completely agree. Like, you cannot say just yes to every single thing. Otherwise, you'll be like overburdened with maybe not so important things, right? Awesome. Okay, you also mentioned, like, during the introduction of product management, that leadership is really an important part of being a product manager. For new product managers in company who start as maybe an associate product manager, does this apply to them as well? If yes, how can they gain leadership skills over the period of time so that when they become product manager or senior product manager, they can perform their duties well?
Yeah, that's a great question, by the way. Thank you for asking that, because it really highlights what I said about the thoughts I want to share about this. And yeah, you got to be careful, right? Like, you gotta, when you come as a product manager, and there's the famous Venn diagram that talks about the 3 circles of business. What's that? Technology, right? And design, and product sits in the middle. And I would add to that, the 4th circle would be people, right? You got to be able to have empathy to the environment you're working in, and you have to really understand where you're living, what's the culture in the place. And especially for new product managers, if they come in and just starting to think and behave like CEOs, and that's why I highlighted the fact that we work without formal authority, and it's really important to understand that aspect, especially for new product managers. We can't dictate, we don't command, right? We use influence, right? on decision making and getting the things we want to do with the product. So you got to learn when do you need to. First of all, what's the environment? If you're coming to an environment, and obviously people will have more experience with you, and they have more experience with the product, what you want to do at first is assess the environment. You want to understand who you're working with, who is actually has the authority in the team and the environment you work in. Sometimes it's not about the titles. It's about, there's the informal people, and you could learn about that just for sitting in a room. And when someone asks, someone's presenting something and he stops his presentation, the room automatically gravitates to some one or two people, right? And sometimes those would be the managers, and sometimes those would be the actual people with the most say in that group. So you want to kind of feel that as well, and you want to know when you need to lead, when you need to support, and when you need to partner. And when you're coming in, I would say your mindset should be about definitely partnering and definitely supporting the team. This is how you will build your leadership and value in the eyes of the team members, where they will give you the room to express yourself. I want to make sure that you guys, I'm not telling you anything not real. This is it takes time to build credibility with engineering, right? And the best way to do that is leverage data. And one of the main skill set I would highlight for any upcoming product manager is the analytics skill set, right? The ability to collect feedback, analyze that. Either it's surveys you ran, market research, internal data that you gather through your database and ran some analytics on it, and share that with the team to help you to establish your point of view against them. If you're just going to say, this is what I think, you're going to lose a lot of credibility in their eyes, and it's going to hurt your performance overall, because you need them. You can't do without those guys to deliver, the roadmap and the features you're building, you're defining. So it's really about using those data points, asking the right questions, and know when to lose in a sense in the argument. You don't always need to win in the argument, right? So don't come with that mindset into the role. And I think if you do those and step yourself slowly, and they'll see the value, right? And also always communicate back that the things that the team has done based on what you said actually drove certain metrics and successes, right? Celebrate those small wins. That will go a long way in establishing credibility and your position within the team, so that you slowly move from support to partner to leadership.
Awesome. I think that's the best advice for new product managers, or like the associate product managers, to gain the leadership role. Okay, perfect. What's the general career path of a product manager? Someone who is just graduated from college, joined maybe as a business analyst, I'm not sure. So what's the general path? Where do they start, and what they can expect, say, 5 or 10 or 15 years down the line?
Well, I think that it's a great question. It's really hard to answer. When you look at research of different paths that people come into product management, they come from all walks of life, from all different disciplines. So there isn't really one path to follow. It's more of a passion-driven path. So I would say what you need to align yourself in your career is making sure you're building the skill set to be prepared for the opportunity that will present itself at some point to get into the role of product manager, right? So we talked about the analytical skill set, right? In every role, you have to bring that. If you're in marketing is very data-driven nowadays. A lot of return on investment analytics and metrics about funnels and conversions, which really resonates well with the role of product management as well. So you want to take that and leverage that. But then you want to make sure that you can talk to customers. So maybe, if you're coming into from a role of a customer support, that's also great, because now you can argue that you have the experience about understanding the customer point of view, the ability to talk to them and relate to their problems, right? So there isn't one specific path, but you want to make sure that you go to those roles, especially a business analyst, like you mentioned, is also a great one from analytics point of view. That you go into those roles that help you build the skill set and then help you articulate and demonstrate in your interview process, how those skill set apply to your role, and why would they help you be successful as a product manager.
Got it. Okay. You must have interviewed a lot of candidates for product management role, both for entry-level position and the senior positions. What is the general pattern of a product management interview? And I know it varies from company to company, from startups to enterprise companies. But still, for example, if I talk about technology consulting, there's like one behavioral interview round, there's one technical case study, and then one final round with the company partner or maybe something. So is there any pattern that our candidates can follow that they can prepare accordingly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you mentioned, right? Every company has its different emphasis and different process. However, they're all looking at three main things when they're looking at you as a product manager. They look at product and business understanding, right? You got to have a critical view on products. And it's really important, by the way, not just a general point of view on product management, what the role is. Take a product that you like and kind of dissect it. Why do you like it? What is working well from a product management perspective, and not from an end consumer perspective? Oh, I just like the design. Why is the design that to help reach certain goals, to solve different pain points? And then what would you have done? What would you have changed and emphasized in product? And why would you do that? Right? That's kind of the product view on things. Which features would you build? How would you prioritize that? But it's also really important. So that's kind of the general product view on things that they will look at and to make sure you understand, but also in the perspective of that company, right? Like you got to understand their mission, their values, what do they care about? You got to have a point of view on their product. When you come to a company and you interview with Amazon, you can't just say, you don't have any point of view on product features and enhancement they can do for their own product. You just can't, because it means you're not ready. So you gotta look at one of their products. If you're interviewing for a very specific role, right? Go look at those specific items and try and find information and form a point of view and things you would have changed and why. So that's kind of the product and business. They'll look at analytics and metrics. They'll look at that. Do you understand what metrics would those changes that you said will impact? How would you know if it's working or not? What would you look at in terms of the different metrics? Understand those definitions. Understand, like if you're interviewing with a SaaS company, what SaaS business cares about. And if you're interviewing with a B2C, what do they care about? If you're B2B, what do they care? There's different metrics to different things. And not all metrics are relevant to all businesses and all companies. So you got to understand that. You got to have ability for estimation problems. Sometimes they'll ask you, how many golf balls can I fit in a box? And it's not because they care about the end results. They want to see that you can take a problem, and this is what product management does. Take a problem and break it down into pieces, right? And then come up with back to the whole solution, right? So product and business, we talked about analytics and metrics, and behavioral. So as I said, right, the fourth circle would be like people, and behavioral is important for that. So they understand, how do you work with a team? How do you challenge people? How do you work with a difficult team member? Which will happen to you. Not everyone wants product to guide them. Like some engineers that are senior, they have their own thoughts about things, and it's okay, right? But you have to be able to deal with that in a constructive manner and not break their working relationships, right? So they will work and try to understand, how do you behave in those different scenarios.
Perfect. Awesome. So I have 2 follow-up questions on this answer. The first one is, you said like whenever you go to for a product management position in a particular company, you should know about their product. That I completely agree. I have read somewhere that it's a good idea, if you are going for an in-person interview, you can take 3 or 4 slides on their product. You can jot down your thoughts about like what their product is, what their customer segment is, what they can do better, and how they can do it. Have you seen any candidates coming up with this type of material with them in interviews? Or what are your thoughts on it? Is it a good idea, not so good idea? Or how would you take it if someone comes up with that level of preparation?
Well, I would love to see that people come in with that level of preparation, but I would not expect to see slides. I think, it's a nice to have. It's definitely not a must have because the interviewer has its own idea of how he wants to walk through the interview process. And what he might do is actually give you like either mini cases or in some cases even where I interviewed, right? They gave me a whole business case and said, this is the information you have, this is the problem, go make a presentation, do your analysis, and come back and present it to us and walk us through the steps, right? So they will guide you through that process, but I would be cautious of not to overdo it because you have a lot of ground to cover when you're preparing for an interview. So know to answer that, know to speak intelligently and critically about those things. But I'm not sure that preparing presentations when you're not asked for is the best use of time for you.
Okay, perfect. And my second question is, so as you said, like in the interview process, you can be asked for a business case, you can be asked for the analytical questions like how many petrol gas stations are there in the city or questions like that. Would you like to recommend some resources for a product management interview preparation? Any books or any blogs that our viewers can follow?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I would recommend is a book, and I don't get any revenue share with this recommendation. It's just I used that when I started my career as product management, and I thought it's really good, doing a good job is covering those. It's called Cracking the PM Interview, basically. It's by Gail McDowell, I think. So you guys can look it up. It's a orange kind of looking book. Uh, and it does a pretty thorough job of going through all those aspects we talked about, giving examples, how you should answer, and then giving you some exercises to work through those. I would say that, while it's really important to have this theoretical knowledge and working through with books and other resources online, there is no equivalent to sitting down with someone that actually has the experience of product management, because I think there's a lot of nuances that you might not even understand if you haven't been and done product management, and someone that can help you and guide you through those and sit with you and talk, and you guys can like give you a mock interview perhaps, or you have like you came up, you looked at a business and you said this is the features, and we'll sit down with you and kind of fine tune those things that you have to and how you would think about them is invaluable in my point of view, and that could make the big difference from you from a success to non-success and the speed of success when you're interviewing in those initial roles, because there's a lot to cover and sometimes you don't need what you need to cover, and you don't know if the answers you provided are strong enough answers and what else you can think about. So while I do recommend obviously have the theoretical knowledge, read the books, read the blogs, find a mentor that can help you with the interview process, and kind of someone to help kind of share thoughts and bounce ideas off.
Sure. Thank you so much. And my last question is it mandatory to have a technology background to become a product manager? Do I need to know the actual coding skills, or do I need to know about APIs to become a product manager? Can I be just functional and apply for a product management role?
So it's not a must-have. Let's start there. But you're a product manager for technology products, for tech products. So you got to have a very good understanding of technology, and why do you need to have that understanding? And so it's different, right? Understanding and ability to understand what you're looking at and how it can be applied, and the architecture and how it works is different from being an engineer that needs to be able to write code. It's not the same thing, right? And I want to make the distinction because a lot of people ask me the exact same question. I think it is advantageous to have engineering background because it lends itself to understanding better technology, but it's not a must-have. You can still have that experience through other venues, but you got to have that. Why is it important? It's important because when you look at technology, you got to understand what it can do for you. You got to understand its limitations and what you can use it with. So it puts constraints on what you define it. It helps you understand what the scope of things might have. Obviously, you need the engineering team to weigh in heavily on that, but it gives you, even just looking at something gives you, you have a understanding under what's the scope of that thing might be. How would it apply to your end customers? What you can do with it, and also you gotta be able to have intelligent conversations and pushback on your engineering team, right? Because if you don't have enough of that, they might give you answers that are not really, satisfactory. And sometimes people need to be pushed a bit to get to a better outcome. And if you can't have that back and forth, it will hurt your credibility. They can tell you things that you might have needed, you could have pushed back on if you knew a bit better. I would argue, right, that if you're too technical, it's also bad. Why it is bad? Because then you might get into arguments with engineering about how to implement things, right? And that's not your job. As a product manager, your job is not to dictate, or you could weigh in, you could, give your thoughts as part of a discussion, but you should never argue for a very specific implementation, because that's why engineering is there. That's why they're paid heavily. They're intelligent people that know their job, right? So you got to make sure that you're not over gravitating towards dictating implementation. That's their job. You just need to give them the requirements and have a good discussion on why the scope is that way, and if you do it a different way, will it change the scope? And so you need understanding, but you don't absolutely need engineering background. And one last word on that, by the way, I think that is really driven, I believe, from that myth of having the engineering background is driven by the fact that Google, one of the most successful technology companies in the world, only hires if you have engineering background, and that's kind of their own value set that lends people to believe that everyone is looking for those things. And the other piece on that is there are technical product management roles which you should have a very strong engineering background in order to be effective in your job. But it's not the only type of jobs, right? You can have different product management roles.
Perfect.
So I don't try to scare you guys. I just want to make sure that you understand why people are asking for that and how this reflects in your daily jobs.
Yep. And I've personally seen like a lot of candidates who didn't have like hardcore coding background, but they were managed to get into product management and like doing really good. So
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Guy, for all your inputs, for your sharing your advice, your knowledge, your experience. I really appreciate it. To our viewers, you can always reach out to Guy on HiCounselor app and website for personalized coaching, advice, and counseling. So feel free to reach out to him. And thank you so much, Guy, again.